We have the fabulous Jennifer Rock in studio, the skin nerd herself, and she is going to share some sun tips and kind of wag the finger, but do it in a nice way, which is generally what you do.
It's a gentle wagging. No, look,
But when the sun
is...
comes out, when you hear about heat waves and everyone gets really excited, like, are you one of us?
So, okay, really good question. I love the sun. Like, who doesn't love the sun? And we need it for vitamin D synthesis, for serotonin, for all the body reasons. But I suppose a little part, if I'm being honest, a little part of my heart does die because I know that I'm going to see a lot of nakedness. And then, which is great, celebrate, love the body top to toe. But then with that comes lack of SPF and then genuinely the risk of sunburn and all that comes with it probably is a lot more heightened. So we'd see a huge influx potentially on the Monday, Tuesday morning after a great weekend where people are saying, look, I had a great weekend. I had all the barbecues. I had all the times in my life, but now I'm genuinely sore, I'm peeling, I'm tender, I'm red. So sunburn, so great weather is what we want, but it's just being safe in the sun and being conscious in the sun, but still enjoying the sun. It's not that we're fearful of it. We don't want to go into a cave. We're not trying to hide from it. Live your life, but do it kind of, I suppose, a little bit more carefully. Something you can do, I suppose, every day, regardless of it being a heat wave or not a heat wave, is just go onto the weather app on your phone and check the UV index and have an idea. So the UV index essentially tells you how much UV rays are penetrating through the clouds onto the, I suppose, the earth. And for us, example, on a morning today, you might see that it's a UV index of 2. It can go all the way up to 11, and it'll actually tell you if it's a low, a medium, a high risk. And that means you're more probable or more, I suppose, exposed to those rays that can cause irritation, sensitivity, sunburn. And not just for the skin, Kathryn, although it's not my remit, but very aware of the eyes. Like, it's not just the skin that can get that exposure. So checking it and being mindful, not just waiting for the heat, is something I'd say.
And should we get into the habit, regardless of what we look at on our app and regardless of what that UV is and what it's saying and what that reading is, that we should be wearing SPF 50, or is it SPF
30?
At all times, and SPF 50 when those UV rays are higher, or what should we be doing in terms of creating good habits, I suppose?
Exactly, and that's everything in life, isn't it? Consistency. So agree completely. So I would suggest every day, hell, rain, shine, you're putting on an SPF. I'd always align with what we always do on the skin. I'd always align with what the Irish Cancer Society, and it's most cancer societies across the world will say SPF 30 and above. There's actually not a huge difference between SPF 30 and an SPF 50. So 97% protection is given with an SPF 30 and 98% protection, so only 1% protection more is given with the 50.
I did not know that.
So it's marginal, minimal, but that I would say doesn't give people an excuse not to apply the higher amount. And if I can tell you why, it's actually how much you're supposed to apply is really important. So if you look at your hand and you look at your two fingers, for example, your forefinger and your middle finger, if you imagine product the whole way up that forefinger, like you've applied it like a nice line, and the exact same on your middle finger, that's how much product, which if you look at those two fingers, it's quite a decent amount. That's how much SPF you're supposed to be applying from your collarbone to your forehead to say that you're getting that level of protection that the bottle has. So example, if the bottle says SPF 30 and you're not applying that much product, and Kathryn, truth be told, very few people are applying that much, they're applying a lot less. That means you're not getting the full 30 or you're not getting the full 50. So I'm a larger fan, or a larger advocate, should I say, of SPF 50 because we're unfortunately not applying enough and we're not reapplying. So go back to your question, yes, ideally applying it every day, simply because it's the UVA rays that we need to be aware of. It's not just the beautiful heated sun that we dream of, that we can
100%.
feel it on our skin when we close our eyes and we think
when
of
you read about the skin cancer statistics in this country, like, you know, and I think about the men in my life as well. Yes. I've got a friend, James, he drives a taxi, the arm out the window, like the back of the ears, the top of the head. Yeah. Women are better at applying SPF, is that fair to say? And it's those spots, it's behind the ears, it's the arm, it's when you're driving. Like we all, particularly in those instances where men are not using SPF, that is a good message to get out there as well.
Very much so. You're 100% right. It's all genders. And going back to the skin cancer stats, unfortunately, they're 11,000 per annum. And you think on this beautiful island of ours, and we talk so much about the weather. Like, if we didn't have the weather to talk about, what would we say?
I know.
To one another in the lift and passing by. But ultimately, it is the cloudy days, it's the rainy days, because that UVA ray comes in and in through the window, exactly as you said. So regardless of whether it's sunny or not, if it's raining outside, you still are getting UVA rays through the window onto the hands, on the steering wheel, or wherever you might be in the car, or through a window. For example, we'd have an awful lot of our clients that would sit at windows in their office, in their day-to-day job, and you'd see a lot of pigmentation. So ultimately what happens is not just sunburn, I suppose. So what we're talking about with sun is that there's also a possibility of what's called pigmentation. So some people might call it age spots, or, you know, there's a kind of a mottled appearance. Some people call it freckles. There's lots of different words for it. Ultimately, it's your skin almost like an umbrella underneath, trying to protect and shield itself. So you'll see that over you know, maybe after a summer holiday or after the summer, you might notice that you've kind of got darker tones on certain parts of the skin. That usually tends to be the forehead, the higher cheekbones. And going back to your point about men, that's where you tend to see an awful lot of people, maybe because women might wear makeup or a touch of foundation and there's often protection in that, or maybe we've just been reared or educated or we're so consumed, unfortunately, with aging, because that pigmentation and the excess sunlight does cause excess lines and wrinkles or accelerated lines and wrinkles before you're a year, whereas men maybe are a little bit less reluctant or maybe not, a little bit more carefree in that regard and not putting on the protection. But when you look at if I look at my son, if I can absolutely throw him under the bus, right, he's 21 years of age, you'd think that the poor child would be reared, and he was, with the love for sun care and skincare. But you can see the back of the neck because he has quite a tight cut, so you can see his neck colour is different to the back of his head, to his chest, to his, you know, his back, and he's teased constantly on the daily by me, so much love, he's totally fine, but you know, I try to remind him, but he's not thinking like we are just yet, and he thinks he's invincible because he's 21. And then you look at exactly that, you look at people's arms and you can usually see, and I know where I live is quite a rural part of Dublin, so we call it the farmer's tan, so no disrespect because loads of my family are farmers, but you can often see that line or that kind of t-shirt mark, or on a woman you can lift up a bra strap and see where the skin underneath is different. All of that is essentially skin that's been overexposed to light over a period of time, and it's just protecting it and knowing that that unfortunately is damaged skin, but you can help correct it.
Speaking of lines and tan lines and all of that, we have seen this horrific trend that is like literally blowing up on TikTok of people sort of leaving their bikini on or their bra on, going on the sunbeds or going into the sun and creating these tan lines. And then I was also reading something last week called sunscreen contouring. So basically where people, young ones, are applying sunscreen but not applying it to some parts of their face in order to give us sort of a contoured, sculpted look. Jesus.
Where do I start? I think it's a hard thing. Look, I'm a big believer in social media and communication and education and having a community, but the downside to social media at times is that things like this become trends and people are attempting to look their most glowiest, dewiest self, which we're often talking about, but this is dangerous. Like, there's no other word for it. So exactly as you described, if you imagine you're putting SPF, we'll always say to apply it all over evenly, leave it for a minute or two. If you are going to put any makeup or anything else on, let it truly settle onto the skin. What in these situations are doing is just applying, example, to the cheekbone or leaving off the cheekbone, for example, because leaving the SPF off the cheekbone because they want the freckles to come through, they want that sun-kissed appearance. What's quite trendy at the moment in a makeup sense is to have beautiful little freckles that you position on the face. So now they're taking it a step further, saying, well, rather than me having to draw freckles on, why don't I just get my true freckles? And I think the sad part with it is that you're really increasing your probability of sunburn and then accumulated sunburn over years, and you're damaging the DNA of your skin cell. This isn't just aesthetic, this is something that it's genuinely worrying. So yes,
and there was also
scary.
Also quite worrying statistics around sunbeds in this country, the use of sunbeds, and they did a sort of more of an undercover study as to the amount of young people under 18s and even under 16s that are accessing sunbeds as well.
I think there's a responsibility, I suppose, to get, like, I feel about maybe 5-6 years ago there was a lot of campaigning and talk and speech about how it really is so dangerous. So I probably take it too personally. I feel like it's a large responsibility of us within the Skin Nerd to advocate for a safe sun, but ultimately I think minors aren't as aware and they do feel they're invincible, but there's almost no excuse for it. And I often feel even people my age and older, so 40s, 50s, are thinking, oh sure, look, you know, it's not that sunny out today, and there's almost an excuse in your head to say I don't need to apply SPF. All I'd say, and I come back to it time and time again, is the skin is an organ. It does deserve to respect it that way. Putting on SPF, and the best SPF, to be honest, whether it's a 30 or a 50, it's how much you apply. Are you applying the correct amount? And this statistic does worry people, I think, because it is a lot, right? But ideally, if you're covering the whole body on your summer holiday away, you're talking 35 mils. 35 mils is really what you're supposed to be applying for the entire body. That's a lot of product that costs an arm and a leg whilst you're abroad. So just making sure, even whilst you're at home, applying that 2-finger rule, like I said, or it's almost like a half a teaspoon amount or a full teaspoon for a limb is the goal. And then reapplying it is also really important. If you're out and, you know, whether you're, you know, getting yourself wet, you're sweating, or perhaps you've just been in and out of the pool, a reapplication is extremely important. And then, yes, enjoying yourself, but just being mindful that you do have a responsibility to your skin as the organ, as you do to all organs, but just to shield it and defend it.
So slather it on Keep slathering it on and
Yeah.
soak up that sunshine.
As the Aussies say, well, it's a slip, slap, slop. So just keep popping it on, and just keep yourself accountable, and become the friend in the group that says, "Have you put it on? Reapplied?" And just be that voice of reason, and then enjoy yourself and have all the fun with
Love
doing
it.
it safely.
Love it. Jennifer Rock, always lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming in.